Hi, it's Out and About with Lucille O'Flaherty, ZTV Live with the Zebra Press. We're live here at the Departmental Progressive Club, also known as the DPC, founded in 1927. We're ready for a candidates forum with the 5 Democratic candidates and an independent candidate as well. And so please, if you are on, please share. We've got a nice crowd here tonight on Queen Street. Please share. It's Out and About with Lucille O'Flaherty, ZTV Live. Please share.
That's 3. Test 4.
Ready to start. It's Out and About with Lucille O'Flaherty, ZTV Live at the Zebra Press. Please share.
All right, folks, so we're right at 7 o'clock. So again, want to welcome everybody. And on behalf of the DPC and our president, Vaughn Ambrose, who will be speaking at the end and encouraging you to go to the bar again and enjoy yourself. And hopefully some of the candidates will hang around and you'll be able to get some one-on-one with them. But welcome to this forum. I'm just here to do the typical Alexandria thing of kind of pointing out our elected officials and former greats and things like that. So we do have a couple council folks here. We have Councilman John Chapman. We have Councilman Cannon O'Gara.
Behind the bar. Behind the bar.
These two first because they are also members of the Departmental Progressive Club. We have former council member Mo Seiferdin. We have former school board member Chris Lewis. We have former school board member Bill Campbell. Louder! We have former fire chief Bob Dubay. We have former sheriff Dana Lawhorn. And we have former school member Eileen Rivera. And we also have a lot of other illustrious people here. I see my son's fiance, Ileana, just came in and stuff. So with that, folks, I'm going to turn the mic over to our moderator tonight, John.
No, Pam.
Pam, oh,
Yeah.
one little thing to do and I screw it up. I'm turning it over to Pam. This is a joint event with NAACP and the DPC, and so Pam is representing the NAACP. NAACP.
Anyway, I just wanted to say welcome from the NAACP Alexandria branch, political action chair. We're very happy that you all came. Thank you to all the candidates for coming. That's simply it. And now I will introduce you to our moderator. He's a member of the NAACP, John Hopkins Gillespie, and he's going to explain how the rules will go tonight.
Thank you.
Oh, that goes back.
Okay, good evening, candidates. Thank you for being here. As Pam said, my name is John Hopkins Gillespie, and I'm a member of the NAACP Alexandria branch. So tonight is pretty straightforward. We will have 60 seconds for opening statements, 60-second responses for the questions, 30 seconds for follow-up or rebuttal, and then we'll do 60 seconds of closing remarks. The order was determined randomly. Pam helped me pick names out of a cup. Mr. Fannin, we will start with you first. Also, I'd like to say that the Zebra Press is here live streaming this event, and so if you are so inclined, please go on their Facebook page and share the live stream so folks who cannot be here will be able to hear what the candidates have to say. We will be covering 6 topics with a variety of questions for each. None of the candidates have seen the questions in advance. The topics will cover affordable housing and community development, public safety and community trust, budget priorities and resource allocation, education in public schools, transportation, infrastructure and environmental sustainability, and community engagement and government transparency. And so with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Fannin, who will kick us off with opening remarks. You have 60 seconds.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, thank all of you for being here. It's great to be back at the Progressive Club. My name is Frank Fannin. I'm a lifelong Alexandrian. I've lived in the city for the past 35 years since I graduated from college at Elon in North Carolina. And I've really dedicated my life to this city, and I love everything that the city stands for and will continue to be. I served on the city council from 2009 to 2012. I've had a lot of leadership roles here in the community: president of Agenda Alexandria, volunteer Alexandria, past president Alexandria Sportsman's Club. And I really wasn't planning on running for the city council. I've been serving the city for private life for a long time, but this opportunity came up, and I'm recently retired from a 32-year mortgage banking career with Crestar, SunTrust, Truist, and I've financed over thousands of homes here in Alexandria. And I want to thank all the candidates for running tonight. And come April 21st, only one of us will be on the city council, but I think everybody deserves a hand for being out here tonight and making it on.
Hello everybody, my name is Roberto Gomez and I'm running to be your next city council member. I'm a longtime Alexandria city resident. I'm a small business owner here, and I'm the executive director and founder of a nonprofit that I self-funded for multiple years to get it to where it's at, where we connect low-income youth in the city to high-paying careers in the skilled trades. Today I'm running because I believe we still have a lot of work to do here in Alexandria. This city was a bed for a lot of the original sins of our nation, and today we mourn the loss of one of the champions of equitable policies, and us as a city, we continue to strive for a more inclusive and equitable community. Speaking of equity and equality, we are here having this forum at the historic DPC, close to its 100th year, of which I am no stranger to. Today I'm here because I want to champion the voices of all Alexandrians. I didn't think I was going to run for city council. I've been serving this community for a long time. The tipping point was one of the young men in my program got shot on January 28th and watched a man die in front of him. I want to make sure we're doing better here in the city of Alexandria. It's safe, it's affordable, and it's inclusive. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hello, I'm Tim Laterack. I am living in Delray, but I'm running to be a city councilman for all of Alexandria. My life is a story of service, beginning with joining the Navy and my grandfather's example, who was a World War II veteran. And that service is what brought me here to Alexandria 9 years ago. It was told to me, you can't choose the life that you are given, but you can choose what you do with it. And I have chosen to give back to this community and to our country every day that I live. And so that has been played out through being president of the Delray Citizens Association. I've now chaired the Economic Opportunities Commission, and this progressive service has helped me understand the inequities and the issues that are affecting all of Alexandria. So I'm running in this time of national uncertainty and chaos to bring a sense of hope through our local government so that Alexandria can be a place that works for all of Alexandria.
Hi, I'm... What? Thanks, Caesar.
Is it on?
It got turned up. Thank you, Tim. Hi, I'm Sandy Marks. We're going to get to issues in a little bit, I'm sure. We're going to talk a lot about that tonight. So I'm going to spend my 1 minute introducing myself to you as a longtime literal card-carrying member of the NAACP Alexandria branch, as I have been for my entire adult life. I've taken the past 4 years to really fill the lane of the Alexandria Democratic Committee, where I've chaired And I'm really glad to say that, as soon as my terms with ABC were over, first thing I did was call Daryl and call Moms Demand Action, the organizations that I used to spend a lot of time with, and try to jump right back in. I care very deeply about the mission of the NAACP. I'm very committed to the values that are behind the organization, as my parents and grandparents were before me. And it's just a real pleasure to be here at the DPC. Thank you to Vaughn and Bill and Kanik and Tony, wherever he might be, and John and Scott and everyone for hosting us. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Charles Sumter. Good evening, yeah. That's right. I'm Charles Sumter. I'm a native New Yorker, but I've been in Alexandria for 15 years. I'm a member of this body right here, the DPC, since 2013. I love this city, but I also mourn the loss of Reverend Jesse Jackson as well. My dad called me this morning and said, you are somebody. And I said, I needed that today. I needed to hear that. I came to Alexandria and I got busy. I saw gaps in the system where youth were falling through the cracks. So I started a nonprofit to support them, to get them housing, to get them to college. And we've helped thousands of kids all across this region go to college who are LGBTQ, who were thrown out of their homes, and I've been there to support them ever since. But they've come back and said, I can't afford to live in the home I came from. There's no way for me to get a job. What do I do? That's why I'm running.
Hey everyone.
Turn it on.
Hello? Push it up. There we go. Testing, testing. All right. Hey everyone, my name is Cesar Madison Tapia. I am a middle school teacher, Army veteran, and a community advocate, and a lab one at that. I have faced housing instability, and I have been through the struggle myself. And that is one of the very reasons that I am sitting here today to be running with you guys. Not only to be out here and talking, but to actually listen to the community's voices. Because at the end of the day, it's all about you guys, not about me. I am here to ensure that we have stability, opportunity, and trust be the focal point of my campaign and you guys' opinions on everything. So thank you guys. I want to dedicate my last 10 seconds to Reverend Jesse James Jackson. Thank you.
And just one point of clarification, a housekeeping matter. So for those who are unclear about the election timeline, there is a firehouse primary for the Democratic candidate this Saturday, the 21st. There will be a general election on presumably April 21st, when the statewide referendum will also take place. All candidates were invited this evening, and the 6 showed up. So thank you once again. We're going to get into the substantive portion of the discussion, starting with affordable housing and community development. Charles, we will start with you, and we'll wrap our way back around, and we will rotate that order for each section. So I'll let you know who's starting first per section. But in your own words, how would you contextualize the affordability crisis?
In my view, there is a lack of supply. And when that happens, prices go up. It's simple supply and demand. Now, we not only need to build affordable housing, we have to do that, but we have to build housing at all different levels so that there are people at all levels who can live in our city. Not just those who are really rich, and not just those who are just trying to get started. So in my mind, we have to build more housing stock to ensure that there's enough for people to actually live in. That's the biggest issue that I see. And it's not just in Alexandria, it's a regional. So are there things we can do across the region? Or is there vacant properties? Are there buildings, office spaces that we can use for housing? I know we're doing that, which is great. Is there more we can do in that regard? That is something I will focus on as a member of City Council.
To me, affordability, to his point, he's correct. But to me, it's also addressing the levels of affordability. To some people, it's different. To me, as a renter, affordability means different to a landowner, to another person who just wants to purchase and do anything, to a small business owner, to a senior who's worried about taxes. To me, we also have to address the youth, the people who are going to inherit this city. And that's why I joined AHAC, to find out more of what the city's doing. I'm the representative of people under 30. As myself, I am under 30. And when we get to the conversations and talking, I don't really hear a lot of what we're really doing for people who are going to eventually inherit the problems of today. And I also want to invite you guys on February 28th, that we have a huge event so you guys can see the master plan, which I've been enjoying, but thank you so much.
Yes, well, after spending 30 years in housing in Alexandria, I've seen what has happened. I remember early in my career, I was financing properties in Delray for $150,000, and at the end of my career, they were going for $750,000. So the market appreciation has been tremendous in here, but one of the unfortunate things with the value of the equity has also priced a lot of people out of this community. And I can remember doing loans in the Parker Gray neighborhood and going to refinance people's homes, and they said, Mr. Fannin, I love living here, but right now the taxes are costing me $6,000 a year. And the taxes, the property taxes in Alexandria are unsustainable for property owners right now. So one of the biggest deficits to home ownership is the average property owner, non-condo, has $1,000.
So when we talk about affordability and how we're building here in the city, I think the idea of just building more units in itself is not the answer, especially when we're talking about market rate housing, because we're not talking about who's moving into them. The assumption is people can already afford to move into them. There's different layers. It's not an easy answer. It's very complex, and there's a workforce component tied into it as well. People have to have jobs in this city to afford to live in this city. I champion ideas like making sure that we have workforce housing for our first responders and other critical staff to infrastructure. I mean, it's a very complex issue. City Council's working on it, and I'm looking forward to working with my future City Council members to really address this in a meaningful way.
So I'm probably one of the more YIMBY candidates. I mean, we all have really pretty YIMBY answers up here, but yes, more housing at all price points and right of first refusal when something comes up. I mean, well, I'll be happy to talk with you more about that, but what I want to leave you here, or with you here, is that I believe that affordability is an equation of many different factors. So it's not just the raw cost of a home. It's also the cost of transit if the house is not connected. It is also the cost of healthcare. If the house is not safe, clean, and without like termites or anything that would keep someone from being able to feasibly live in that home without extra healthcare costs. I was speaking with a leader from Africans Community Together, talking about Southern Towers, talking about some of the predatory practices that is occurring there within an otherwise affordable building in our city. People are trapped because they need that transit that is a lifeline to individuals to be able to afford to live here, but they have no other feasible options. We have to look at the entire picture when we look at affordability.
Okay, I won't echo what so many of my colleagues up here have said. Caesar's right, 57% of people in Alexandria are renting. That's how I grew up. And 75% of those are making $75,000 or less. So affordability is more than about homeownership. What I'd like to address here is that our city council, I was really pleased to see, do a really great thing, which is they more closely aligned our housing policy here in Alexandria with the 13th Amendment of the Constitution. So we are here, Frank, not because of things that happened while you were on council and before, but because of redlining, which is a historic problem that has caused all kinds of grief and affordability issues for us nationwide. And housing specifically, somehow threading the needle and being the loophole to the removal of badges and vestiges of slavery. I think we did our duty here in Alexandria to remove those. What I would like to understand from Frank is how he feels about that, and does he think, like I think, that every single neighborhood in Alexandria should bear the responsibility of building, and not just a few, and that many of our neighborhoods in Alexandria who have been absolutely untouched by building more housing to drive down the scarcity prices for all of us really need to join the team.
Frank, 30 seconds to respond.
Okay, sure. One of the policies that the city put forward, which was very controversial, was the recent putting apartment buildings in single-family homes. So right now we have 14,000 single-family homes in the city of Alexandria. And when the city council approved their package, when they passed 9 housing resolutions, one of them was that you could put single apartment buildings in single-family neighborhoods. And this is something that should not happen. We have different areas of the city to live, but when you buy in a single-family neighborhood, right now someone can build a property next door and they can put 4 apartment units in there. 16 people can live in your neighborhood right there with no parking restrictions. We have sewer problems in this city, so it's a big issue. And pretty much all of the single-family homeowners have been against this, and there's been a lawsuit going on. And so once I get on the city council, I'm looking forward to working with the council members to reverse that policy.
I don't actually agree with it either.
Okay, moving on to our next question. The city is currently working on its Housing 2040 Master Plan, and it's hosted a series of community meetings since late 2024 to seek community input. To what degree have each of you participated in that community engagement process, and what specific items or objectives would you like to see covered in the final master plan? Charles, we'll start with you again.
And so, a couple of things that I do want to see out of that plan is more support for the missing middle, which is housing, which Frank just talked about, being against. And my thing is, we're not going back. Alexandra's not going back. We're going forward. And we have to think that no neighborhood is off. No neighborhood is safe. No neighborhood is off. My neighborhood is up for debate just as yours is. That's how we get to an Alexandria of 2026 and beyond. So we have to think differently about how we think about housing, how we think about zoning, how we have tenant and landlord relations, which is more clear communication around eviction protection so that people aren't thrown out on the street. Because that's what's happening. So we have to make sure we stop people from getting thrown out, have eviction protection for those people, have landlord good policies with landlords as well, small business landlords in particular, not big corporate landlords. I'm talking about small landlords who are just like us. So that's my focus on housing as well.
As a recent member of AHAC, I've gotten a little bit of insight on it, and I've been very vocal on it. I'm gonna say it again, it's the people who are gonna inherit these issues. And when we talk about affordability, we also have to talk about, as Charles mentioned, tenant protections. That has to be key. Majority of city people here, like Sandy said, 50% are renters. And when I speak with them, I keep telling them, we also have to look at this without losing the identity of the city, without becoming like Washington, D.C. I'm sorry, I work there, but you know. But no, I love this city. And we have this this whole Hallmark, vibe going on. We look out for each other, and that's one of the main reasons I want to stay here. And when I interview people, that's their main point. I want to live here after college. So I also think we have to be transparent to the youth and tenants when it comes to these issues. Thank you.
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
The question is, on the Housing 2040 Master Plan, to what degree you've participated in the community engagement process for that plan, and what specific items or objectives would you like to see covered in the final version?
I haven't really dug too deep into the 2040 plan. I know it's just been rolled out right now. And as for the housing in Alexandria, we do need to have more housing, and one of the ways that we can achieve it is a lot more group housing. So in appropriate neighborhoods, not single-family neighborhoods, you can have group housing. So I'm the landlord myself, and I've had properties where I've rented to families, but now I'm helping with the affordability crisis. You can get 4 people living in a house in Old Town, all single people, and they can all live there for like $900 a month. So that's a good way to help with the housing crisis, have more people living together in group houses.
So, with mostly everything I can possibly do here in the city, I make sure that I do my best to bring voices into these kind of conversations as decisions are being made on behalf of our entire city. And I would just say with the housing plan, although again it's fairly new, so we need some time to discuss that and the outcomes of that. But just in general, when it comes to involving voices in different communities from across the city, I've been deeply involved in that for years and years and years. Even sit in some of those rooms with some people sitting in this room. But that being said, with the housing plan, the master plan for 2040, you know, it's a challenge. I don't think there's any real solution for it. I think right now, I mean, we're talking about these things right now, but as we consider affordability and what zoning and affordable housing means for all and how that whole thing went down, I mean, there's some strong considerations to be had.
As I said earlier, I'm chair of the Economic Opportunities Commission, and so, and thank you, Dave, for joining me, one of my fellow commissioners. Part of the rollout of the Housing 2040 plan, we actually had our commission meeting at one of the Housing 2040 plan rollout meetings. So we all engaged in the plan so we could deeply understand what is it we're trying to do as a city and how can we get engaged as a commission. A commission that's focused on residents living with low income, a commission that advocates for those residents. So we've been very closely aligned and connected with the plan. I was recently personally at the tenant protection session, and I would like to see additional coordination with the health department coming back to a safe, healthy home can be an affordable home. But I also want to just take the last 10 seconds to address Mr. Fannon's point. As a single family home owner in the Delray neighborhood, that is a neighborhood that has garden apartment buildings, I think we can coexist together, all different types of housing.
Rather than rehash what's already been said that I agree with, or poke at the things that I don't agree with, I will tell you a little bit of a personal anecdote about myself that sort of guides my vision of what housing should be like in Alexandria. I grew up with a single mom who was a secretary, and we had to live 45 minutes to an hour from the good schools, you know what I mean by that, and from the jobs with benefits. And so I spent my childhood in the car, doing homework, eating breakfast, eating dinner. What I would like to see for Alexandria kids, 80% of Alexandria kids live in aging apartment buildings. We need transit connectivity. We need to be sure that our kids and our families and our seniors and our single people who are apparently all gonna, get a house together in Old Town for $900 each, we all need to be able to get to school and get to work and get home in time to eat dinner at a table instead of the back seat. So as we continue to discuss our housing plans, let's also really think about how we are connected to each other and to the care tasks we need to take care of as Alexandrians.
One quick request. While we appreciate you all standing and delivering your remarks, it's actually easier for the photographer if you all remain seated.
Photography first.
Yeah, so thank you. As you are all aware, the city's redevelopment and housing authority has been in the news for not great reasons because of misconduct by its former CEO. What specific reforms would you support to bring greater accountability to AQObR? Charles, we'll start with you.
I mean, I think any city agency, city council, or government should be held accountable. There are laws, there are procedures, there are regulations that need to be followed. And if those things are not followed, the person should be removed, just as we have seen. These people are in the public trust. So if they are the sheriff, if they are the ARHAB director, or whoever they are accountable for their actions. And so I think the reform, I don't know if there were reforms that are needed. The system worked when they got the person out. And so I think that's how effective oversight is how you ensure things are going the way they're supposed to be going. Effective oversight is how you ensure money and funds are being spent appropriately. And that people who shouldn't be living in units that they can well afford are not taking away housing for people who can't. And I think there was a misoversight of how that even occurred. But I just think as a member of council, I would be laser set on ensuring people who hold the public trust do what is right and do what they're supposed to be doing.
You repeat the question for me?
What specific reforms would you like to support to bring greater accountability to AQObR?
So AQObR. I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm frankly new to this issue. Could you explain that to me?
So the former CEO of the Housing Authority was caught using one of the affordable housing units for his own personal purposes. He's obviously since been removed, and there's been some cleaning house since then. So we'd like to get the candidates' perspectives on how we would like
And
to
I
bring
apologize to the community, but this tells you a lot about how local news does matter and how it should get to folks like me who are social media active at all times. But if that's the issue, yes, we should hold him accountable. And like Charles said, he's part of the public trust. And if I was a city council member, or if even elected, I would hold him accountable and even have an intervention and be like, hey, what are you doing? By the end of the day, this is taxpayer money that's going into it. And I don't think any taxpayer money should go to people who are gonna abuse it. Thank you.
One of the things that we need to do for ARHA and a lot of the city organizations is financial audits and keeping a close eye on the books. So ARHA is a multi-million-dollar organization with money flowing in and out on construction deals all the time. When you have leaders that come in, we need to be very careful who they're bringing in. They're not giving jobs to friends. They're not giving jobs to family members. And it has to be a tight operation. We have to do this through all city budgets. Our city budget now is almost $950 million. That's a lot of money that's flowing through this city every month. So I think audits and good accounting is a very important step to prevent financial fraud in ARHA and all city operations.
Well, there's certainly a financial and fiduciary responsibility of board members, those who are appointed by city council. I think that was a lot learned from this, but let's not just make it about the money. Let's talk about the people who couldn't get their mold removed from their walls because you had a guy in there who decided he was more important and used ARHA workers to come in and remodel a place that he shouldn't have been in the first place. Okay, so there is a money aspect to it, but let's talk about the people aspect of it, the people who were affected, the people who were manipulated. And I think city council did the right thing to remove ARHA board members. In fact, I think we've learned something here, and that's who we appoint. We need to sit down, thoroughly go over the responsibilities of what it means to sit on a board like that, where you're overseeing hundreds of millions of dollars of assets, and ensure that we have somebody that not only can we trust to lead it as the CEO, but responsible folks who can oversee the responsibilities of the organization.
So I'll approach this question as a systems thinker and a current chair of a commission. What I see from my seat chairing the Economic Opportunities Commission is that we have a lot of boards and commissions in the city, and we have a few members who are appointed by members of council. And that's how a lot of our boards and commissions work. I'm not just appointed, we're all appointed by members of council. I mean, we represent members of council in some cases. And we need to increase communication between council and those members and the oversight of council to those members. I mean, it's all about communication. When I think of a system, and I think of like a medical error in a hospital healthcare system, you don't always point at who's the bad actor. You look at the system as a whole and see where it failed. And what I can see, not looking specifically into the ARHA situation, from my perspective, we could do better about consolidating our boards and commissions, finding better synergies, and making sure that we do have time for members of council to exercise that oversight.
The ARHA situation was terrible and unfortunate. I think we were all really disappointed to learn what the CEO was responsible for and did. I agree with several of my colleagues up here. No one likes to see any kind of misuse of funds or resources for someone who just doesn't need it, especially in these very specific financial times where the pie is shrinking and there's not enough to feed us all. And to what Tim said about the system and this being a systems problem, yes, to some degree. We are a citizen-led board and commission system. It takes a lot for people to step up into these roles and to apply to do them. We need really great people, really great, qualified, knowledgeable people to do that. And we had a group of lay people step up and work on this board. It was unfortunate what had to be done. And I think the greatest resource we've added is a fresh start with a fresh board of people who now understand what went wrong and can be committed to protecting the program for the future.
Alrighty, to close out this section, housing tends to be the largest focus of the affordability issue, but the cost of living in general has risen to seemingly unsustainable levels. Beyond housing costs, what other expenses are driving up the cost of living in your personal opinions, and how would you address those issues if you were elected?
I mean, it's like, what's not going up, right? Dominion electricity is going up. Trash is going up, right? Just their groceries are going up. People are struggling every day. And I'm not gonna sit here and have a magic solution to a problem that's 100 years old, right? But one of the things that we're thinking about is pathways for people to be able to make money, to be able to support themselves. With talking to Roberto, we share a passion on workforce pathways and apprenticeship programs for our students so that they are able to get hands-on training to do the work that we're all gonna need. As we just saw, there's not only a shortage of housing, but there's a shortage of skilled labor to actually build these homes, to actually furnish them, to maintain them. How are we growing the next generation of plumbers, electricians, and people who have that skill set to make lives a bit more affordable for them and their families? I think there's a lot we could do there around electricity, funding on electricity. That is something I think is a larger term conversation around climate change.
Thank you, guys. As somebody who lives paycheck to paycheck, still to this day with a college degree, I agree with them. We should create more pathways with either internships and all that. But when you speak with people, they don't, not to be rude or anything, but they don't want to be plumbers. They don't want to work in a rough job. I've done those jobs growing up. A little backstory of me, I'm a Mexican immigrant. I was brought here 4 years old by my older sisters and my Mexican mother. And growing up, that wasn't our pathway. And I'm in charge of over 150 kids daily. And when I tell them, they're not gonna tell me, hey, I wanna be a plumber and all that. We also have this thing in Hispanic culture and even Black culture where we frown upon education. We should also pivot on that, on affording that. But when it comes to affordability, like I said again, whether it be utilities, whether it be groceries, we also have to address where city council can work at, whether it be in rent, whether it be helping small businesses, or whether it be helping seniors who need help. Thank you.
Yes, costs have gone up everywhere, utilities, food, you just go out to a restaurant in Alexandria, you can't even go out to lunch for 2 people and spend less than $50. I mean, I like saving money. That's just one of my habits. And I go to Aldi to buy my groceries. So if you go to Aldi, you can really get some good discount on food. And it's a good place to go. But I think a part of the other challenges has been a lot of regulatory burdens that come on that drives up the cost of building properties. It drives up the cost of utilities. My family's had a business here for 141 years in Alexandria. My grandfather was one of 11 kids born at Duke and Henry Street back then. And the reason you had 11 kids is because there was no social security system in the country. Everything was based on the family would take care of everybody. And that's why you had 11 kids, because your children would take care of when you got old. And today, it's actually the opposite. Children are an economic liability. 100 years ago, they were an economic asset. And that's something that's unfortunate, but we need families to come together and support each other. And the better families are, the stronger the community and everybody will be.
Well, from a council perspective, I suppose it's a delicate balance of what services the city can provide for its citizens versus where we can partner with organizations in the region to keep costs down. I think that we don't need to be looking so much only on the return on investment, but also how it impacts our residents and how we see that. Other than that, I can get into fiat currencies and things like that, which are a different matter altogether. But how we spend money in the city is important, and the trade-offs and the offsets through partnerships, smart partnerships, doing smart businesses, and reevaluating how we're spending our money overall to keep costs down on our residents.
I'll come back to my initial, how I opened this section, talking about how affordability is an equation of multiple different factors. And what we've seen from the EOC is something on transit. We've talked about transit a little bit here. Increasing the frequency and the availability of transit can help alleviate what I call the transit tax, where if someone doesn't have access to good quality transit, then they have to buy an extra car or pay for some other mode of transportation to get to a job. We see the majority of individuals living with low income are on the west side of the city, and a lot of the jobs that they can fill are on the east side of the city. They have to get there. Another one, childcare. From the EOC, what we've seen are childcare deserts across the city and increasing childcare costs. The city can use zoning tools and other mechanisms to help increase the availability of good quality, affordable childcare that will help reduce overall costs for families. Those are a couple things.
What's driving up costs in Alexandria? Well, I have 2 teenage boys, or 2 economic liabilities. They are in middle school and high school, and they eat a lot of food. We live in a house that has to be powered, and I spent a lot of my savings and past income on childcare. Tim is absolutely right. We have a serious problem with childcare deserts in Alexandria. If you take a look at, and I've said this 1,000 times, so forgive me if you've heard this before, when you look at a heat map of any inequity in Alexandria, whether it be climate, places where it is incredibly hot compared to places where it is not, just within our little 16 square miles, where childcare is absolutely missing from the equation, even lifespan, it's all the same map. And so I think what we need to do is do place-based targeting, a lot like our health department does, to go in and ask individual people, what are your extra costs here where you live in relation to others, and then take a targeted approach to try to fix those things. Childcare is very expensive. It can cost $4,000 a month, so take it from me.
30 seconds to follow.
I just want to say there are many people who want good union jobs in this city and in this region. And I think being a plumber, being an electrician, are all respectable trades that a lot of people just may not be exposed to, particularly youth. So there are things we can do in the high school level to bring that exposed youth to these opportunities as well. They at least get an idea that I can have a career in this as well. This is something that I can do to help pay for myself, help my family. So I think there are just many ways we can go about this issue, but I just want to put my support out for the trades because that is incredibly important work that we're all going to need.
30 seconds.
I would like to say, my previous comment wasn't to throw down. I've done blue collar, but we shouldn't limit our children to exceed in higher education. You can still go to higher education and become an engineer. You can become an architect. You can become, the greatest thing is still being a union worker. But what I'm saying is, don't limit our youth and the people who are going to head into the world to just go to, hey, do plumbing, which is an honorable job. I have nothing against that, but just to have a comment here to previously, say, like, I appreciate union workers, but again, higher education should be an option as well.
All right, we are closing out that portion of the debate, and we are moving into public safety and community trust. Tim, we're going to start with you this time, and we'll actually work our way backwards, just so that way I'm not picking on Charles the entire time. Compared to last January, crime statistics are offering a mixed picture for the city. Larcenies and stolen vehicle crimes are down, but aggravated assaults, robberies are up. If elected, how would you work with law enforcement to ensure that these numbers do not continue to rise through the end of the year?
Thanks. Now I get a sense of how I get to start with a question of the pressure Charles had. Yeah, so as president of the Delray Citizens Association, we work closely with our police and our sheriff, getting updates every month from them on what those statistics are, what's going on in our neighborhood, and really coming together as a neighborhood to understand just where those trends could be. I think increasing communication with the police department is definitely a plus with the community. We have a great police force that I believe I've experienced. I mean, I've experienced as a white person to say that, but they've been very good about coming out to us, helping us understand what they are doing in the community to monitor, and we let them know what we're seeing as a community to help bring them along to see where those gaps are. So I think increasing communication and relations with the chief of police and the leadership there so we can make sure that they keep those ties with the community.
Is it on? Okay, all right, ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Let's talk about where the crimes are being committed, where the aggravated assaults are happening, where the murders are happening. At the beginning of this forum, debate, discussion, I said that one of my kids had been shot in the ankle, and he won't play football anymore. A couple years back, there was a drive-by across the street from Braddock Road Metro in Atkins. There was another one of my kids that was shot. You know who's doing the work to build the trust in those communities besides myself? People like Michael Johnson, people like Benny Evans, the people who have been in this community for a very long time who are doing work with the Alexandria Police Department. I've said it in the article ALX Now. I'm in favor of community policing, building relationships with the communities who need the help. And I'm not saying Delray and other places don't need the help. When we're talking about where the crime's at, we need to start building trust in communities that traditionally do not trust police for systemic issues, systemic reasons. We can rebuild that trust that would lead to preventing crime to happening in the first place and solving crime faster when it does.
I think it's very important that the community and the police work well together. And what I mean by that is elected leaders around this country have happened over the past couple of years, have demoralized the police. And as you know, a lot of police have left the police force. They've decided to get out of the business because they've been ridiculed by politicians. So I think what we have to do at all levels of government, the local police need to work with the citizens and respect them, and the citizens need to respect the police. It's at the same as the state level and the federal level. So when someone's doing their job as a police officer, you have to treat them with dignity and respect, just like you would anyone else who's in another job. So the police, sometimes there's a bad cop. We know that. There was a bad cop in Minnesota. He's in prison where he should be. But 98% of the police are good people, and they're there for law enforcement. They're doing their job, and we need to have better respect in communities for our law enforcement.
Public safety and community should go hand in hand. And this is something where I spent all morning looking at stats. And something that I've noticed is we have a larceny problem, we have a theft problem. And one thing that the current city council is doing a great job is with the police review board, oversight board. And I really do champion what they're doing, and I know there needs to be more transparency because I just recently learned about this. But we also have to learn about the root causes of what's causing this. I'm gonna tell you another personal story. I was once labeled as a juvenile delinquent for the dumbest things. And I remember, when you're not given the opportunity, what other option do you get? You take. So we must also go into the root causes of why certain communities and certain people get there. For our middle school, we have after-school programs in place where I also volunteer. And I also, I also came from there, but we also have to fund schools when it comes to after-school programs and mental health issues on this. We have to look at the root cause of why they're taking. Is it because they don't have the opportunity that we're not giving them? Thank you.
I think the city has been focused on this issue for a while. The review board, looking at data, looking at targeted crimes, where they're happening, I think is all important. Frank mentioned, demoralizing officers. Those officers who people were demoralizing were because people being killed, right, in the street for who they were. That's not, people support the police. They want the police in their communities. When there's something happening, who do they call, right? But they want to be treated fairly. They want to be treated equitably and under the law. I think it also includes training and education for officers. I've worked with Sheriff Langhorn and Sheriff Casey when I was head of the LGBTQ task force. How do you handle a criminal, or someone who's apprehended, who's a member of the community, who's transgender, and needs to be housed appropriately? We did that training working with officers and sheriff's deputies to ensure officers understood the type of people they were dealing with and how to handle those situations. I think that's really, really important, training and education.
Yes.
I don't think the answer here is more police. No, I don't think that's the answer. I think that distrust of police in many of our communities is a rational reaction to what they've seen on the news, elsewhere, and sometimes at home. I'm very proud of APD and our sheriff's office for instituting things like the 8 Can't Wait framework. I sat on Sheriff Lawhorn's committee during COVID to put that in place when we were seeing, absolutely unrestrained use of force on American citizens. I would like to see more community networking. I don't think it's reasonable to say that there should be equal respect from the people and the people sworn to protect them with the power dynamic that exists. So I am all for respect, and I would like to see some community programs. I agree with Caesar on after-school programs. I'll leave it there.
Roberto, 30 seconds.
Hello? Yeah, so I mentioned the community policing initiative, but let's not forget that we have a responsible as a community to provide opportunities for people that don't have them. Oftentimes, the youth that I work with are out on the street, vulnerable to be committed, recruited by gangs or taught how to sell drugs or out stealing for lack of food in their stomach. Without opportunity, people stay stuck in survival mode. So I don't want to just put this on APD, but there are community police initiatives, but as a community, we can work together to provide opportunities to prevent people from having to struggle in the first place.
30 seconds.
I think we also have to look up instead of punching sideways and punching down on this issue. I spent a lot of time, in DC during COVID and during, the first Trump administration at the Black Lives Memorial fence with the fence angels, and we witnessed, law enforcement tearing down beautiful art and representation of a real movement that was happening. Again, I don't see that in Alexandria, and I'm really proud of our law enforcement here. But again, I just want to say respect is two-way, but we do need to understand that there is a power dynamic and expect more from the people who are paid to protect us, and do so, with their whole selves. I appreciate them, and also.
Last year, the City Council approved changes to the Independent Community Policing Review Board over the objections of the board. Do you support the specific changes that Council made? And if there are changes that you disagree with, could you explain which ones and what you would propose as alternatives? Tim, we'll start back with you.
This is one where I am going to admit that I don't know the specific changes that were approved to the Community Policing Review Board. I learned a lot in the past, the past 3 years as chair of the EOC. That was one specific area I haven't looked into. I'm happy to go into it and provide feedback for you all on what that is. But I will say that I believe in the existence of the Community Policing Review Board, having been through law school, having understood the systemic barriers and institutions that we have created in this nation that disadvantage people of color, and disadvantage our immigrants. We need to have this community aspect to policing, and like I said before, increasing that communication between the council, between the police leaders, and between the community, so that we can all come together and have a solution that's right for us.
Well, I appreciate that we have an independency on this. I think the fact of the matter is the oversight of the citizens were watered down, and now it doesn't have to be that way anymore. We have a new person overseeing it, and I'm appreciative of that. And while I certainly trust APD, we have checks and balances in our society for a reason. And APD is responsible for protecting us. And we need to have citizens that can oversee what's being done. I think no organization is without flaw. And for that reason, we have to have independent review boards.
Being a police officer is not easy. I've talked with a lot of officers, and a lot of them, as we know, left in 2020, 2021 with their morale. These independent review boards can be good, but you also have to keep in mind that maybe police officers feel like they have, in essence, handcuffs on and they really can't do their job, because if they get someone who doesn't like them, they go to a review board, and is that called justified? And my understanding, there's only been about 6 or 7 people that have been referred to the review board, and I know Chris Lewis is one of the leaders on putting it together, and I still need to get a little more details on it, but we need to respect our police and we need to respect our citizens. Everybody deserves respect, mercy, and dignity.
I don't agree with what they've done. I think that if you're a police officer and you hold the badge, that you should be held accountable for your actions. And I think that the review board should be able to subpoena people that have committed a certain crime while they're on duty. Frank, we're human, we mess up. If I mess up when I was working retail, guess what happens? You get fired. If you mess up as a cop, nothing against you, we're human. If you mess up, you need to be held accountable. We're not perfect. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you, hey, you know, this and that. No, because when you sign up for that badge, as somebody who studied criminology, as somebody who had applications with DEA, FBI, CIA, all the 3-letter agencies, I can tell you, one thing I knew before I almost signed those paperwork is if I mess up, I better be accountable. I better be held accountable for the mess ups that I do. And I think that the review board should have that power to subpoena people who have committed wrongful actions. Thank you.
Agreed. I was helped to provide ideas around this in the beginning when folks were first talking about it. Haven't followed up closely to know what changed, what hasn't changed, because there are a million things that's happening, right? We're flying at lightning speed. So I have to look at it deeply to see what specific changes have been made and what I was looking or not. In concept, a review board obviously is about oversight and accountability. And it has to have some teeth in order to do that, which it did originally. That was the whole point of it. And so I'm curious to just kind of get deeper as to what exactly people are upset about on that particular issue.
I'm really thrilled that we have a police review board. I know that took a lot of work and a lot of time and intention and a lot of dedication from people over many years to get done. I think from all of our answers up here, my answer specifically, maybe that's clear. You know, Frank, in 2020 to 2022, we lost a lot of public sector workers, not just police. And we lost a lot of teachers, we lost a lot of doctors, we lost a lot of female-led professions. And it wasn't because we were committing acts that were very inappropriate for our level of authority and violent toward the people we were serving. So I want to be clear that it is possible to see loss in a specific sector without it being tied to disrespect. I think that these jobs are difficult, they are hard, and then you've got guys like Sheriff Lawhorn who was doing the right thing and reading the room and looking at fellow law enforcement officers and what was going wrong and trying to make it right. And so that is always an option, Frank.
The Trump administration has made mass deportations a top policy goal, and that has led to ramped up ICE activity in communities across the country. The Sheriff's Office and Chief of Police have maintained that they do not voluntarily cooperate with ICE, but some community advocates dispute those claims. How would you ensure that there is appropriate oversight for law enforcement within the city and their interactions with ICE? And Tim will start back with you.
All right, so I'll just start by saying that I simply do disagree with the sheriff's position on this. I respect that he is an elected officer and that he has the authority to take such a position, but I'm in accord with the city council's resolution in directing him or asking him to not do that. It's the difference between an administrative warrant and a judicial warrant. We all know what, I mean, those of us who have been following the issue know what that means, but as an attorney, I can see the exact actual legal implications of either one of those. I think it's pretty clear to me, but that's a matter of interpretation. So In terms of how would you work with law enforcement, I think it's important the two different aspects. We have APD and we have the sheriff. This is what the sheriff is doing, and then we have Alexandria Police Department. There have been some suggestions about different review protocols or things that we could implement from a proactive standpoint in the city. I think it's an interesting idea. I think that we can continue to have those conversations on what actually makes sense and what the APD would actually be able to do. But I do have some questions about adding more guns to the fight and actually who APD would be protecting if they were to show up in such a situation.
Can you repeat the full question so I make sure I'm answering this correctly?
Absolutely. The Trump administration has made mass deportations a top policy goal, and that has led to ramped up ICE activity in communities across the country. The Sheriff's Office and Chief of Police have maintained that they do not voluntarily cooperate with ICE, but some community advocates dispute those claims. How would you ensure that there is appropriate oversight for law enforcement within the city and their interactions with ICE?
Well, I've been at the ICE protests around the city. I know what's going on. I know that people are upset, and I also know that there's a discussion on whether or not the sheriff is interpreting a law one way or another. The state code, again, I'll read it last night, I'll read it here. 53.1-218. It's the duty of an officer in charge to inquire as to a citizenship. Notice to federal immigration officer of commitment of alien. This is stuff that we can change through state legislation. We can put a legislative package together and send it down to Richmond, work with our delegation in Richmond to ensure that there is no misinterpretation of it anymore, because it could be changed. Outside of that, ICE in the community is scary, man. There's entire communities that aren't going to work. Their kids aren't going to school. I think that our officers here in the city of Alexandria are sworn to protect our citizens, and to me that means our civil and constitutional rights. And I think that's what they should be doing, including if another federal agency or officer is committing a crime against another human being, point blank period.
I think the question we need to ask ourselves is, why is there even a second Trump administration? And I'll tell you why. The 4 years before, when Joe Biden was the president, he opened the borders to the United States. And listen to this, 11 million people walked into our country, okay? 11 million people came into our country, okay?
If you let the candidates please talk, thank you.
And when they came into our country, a lot of them just came in here totally illegally and came into our country. Now, if someone were to walk into your house, okay, would that be appropriate? Okay, I've been to El Salvador twice. I've been to Honduras. I've been to Haiti. I even went to Eagle Pass, Texas recently, and I can understand why people want to come to our country. But we have to have an immigration process where people wait in line and they follow the rules. There's 337 million Americans in this country. Do all of you think that we should just open the border and let anybody that in the world that wants to come into the United States?
It's too simple.
Take
simple.
Okay. We need it. So that's not.
No immigration on stolen land.
Before we move on, please respect the candidates as they are taking the time to share their positions on the issues. If you have questions on specific issues for them, I'm sure they're happy to stay afterwards and address them. But
misinformation.
I'm sorry, but the candidates are speaking. If we could just be respectful while they're offering their thoughts on the issues.
You turn the camera right here. Hey, Sheriff Sean Casey. My name's Cesar Madison Tapia. I used to be undocumented. There were 54 families that you have took their family members away. Yes, you are collaborating with ICE, and I am going to call it out. Abolish and prosecute those guys. That is the most un-American organization I have ever seen in my life, and as somebody who's been in uniform, I take that personal. Yes, I think that city council holds a weight, the name to it. I've also been to the ICE protest, and I've also been a loud, very loud and apologetic person on this. As Jane from LX now said, I'm a viral TikToker. Yes, I have almost 10,000 people who follow me. Guess what? I spread advocacy not only by showing up, but by telling even my children at school and everybody that, hey, Mr. Madison's here for you, and I'm gonna continue the good fight. Yes, we should hold Sheriff Sean Casey accountable and anybody in our community who thinks it's okay to separate families, who come here to work hard and contribute to our community.
I too have been unequivocal with this response to what ICE is doing in our country, and I don't want to see it happen here. It's happening here. I don't want to see Alex Preddy or Renee Good being killed here in Alexandria. That hasn't happened here yet, and I don't want to see it happen. That's why Mark Levine has endorsed my campaign, because I've been unequivocal. City Council has its powers, its abilities. We need the state to make changes to the law, which is when I ran for state senate, was the one of the things I talked about. Now, I'm glad to see that the governor has the executive order now that says that state departments do not have to cooperate with ICE agents. They have a job to do. We may not like that job, but that is the job that they have. But we don't have to help them do their job. We don't have to help them do it. And so I think accountability for me looks like Sheriff Casey coming before council to explain his views on his view on the law and the interpretation for all citizens to see. Whether you agree or not, I think that's about accountability, and as elected official, that should be number one.
I've been vocal on the issue of immigration and protesting ICE for a decade. I was really, one of the reasons I ran for chair of the Alexandria Democratic Committee was because I wanted to see the party put some more power and have some discussions and build coalitions around issues like this, which we have done. I have spent time out at Farmville. We all feel very passionately about this. I've spent a good deal of time on the phone with Sheriff Casey talking about this. We have a relationship, and my hope was to bring him around to this position. I can pitch a fit. I can drag him before council. What I'd really like to do is get to work. And I'm glad to see the folks up here embracing this idea that the way we do this, the way we change Sheriff Casey's actions are by changing the law that he has sworn to follow. And so I've been talking in detail with Delegate Alfonso Lopez, who has endorsed me, and Senator Saddam Salim, who has endorsed me, and other members of our state legislature with whom I have great relationships to try to change the law that Sheriff Casey has outlined for us could be changed that would change his actions. Let's do that.
Yes, 30 seconds.
So I didn't know if I wanted to take a stab at this or not, but I just wanted to say what Mr. Fannin said in the most respectful way. I totally disagree with everything that you said. I know you put yourself out there as somebody who wants to think differently, be an independent thinker, and not be someone a part of this group think. But respectfully, what you said sounds like the MAGA group think that has led us to where we're at today. So I just wanted to respect that.
30 seconds.
I'm concerned I wasn't clear. I would like to use all the tools we have in the tool belt to change Sheriff Casey's practices and procedures. But right now, what I'm focused on in my specific lane, other than vocal outreach and discussion of this topic and making clear where I stand as a community leader, is to focus on the legislation that I believe will give no one any choice and cannot be misinterpreted, and therefore will lead to direct action, which is, we're interested in results.
Okay, we are closing out that section. We are moving on to budget priorities and resource allocation. If elected, what will be your #1 budget priority? And Roberto, we will start with you.
My #1 budget priority is workforce. And I'll tell you why. When we have a strong workforce, all of a sudden, for a lot of people, things become more affordable. Communities become safer. People can earn money. People are living the quality of life that they should be. We have a massive amount of uncertainty in the future. Everything from federal workers that have been laid off to how is that going to impact their property taxes, or them being able to even pay that, which puts us even further into debt. We're running at a huge deficit. I think that workforce entails supporting our small businesses. I think workforce entails helping young people that are going to be here going to high wage careers in the skilled trades. I think that also talks about bringing commercial revenue outside of just small businesses, which drives down the prices of a lot of things if we can get it right and adds money to our budget to spend on additional services.
The last time the city actually had a decrease in the budget was when I was on the city council from 2009 to 2010. This is why it's very important that we have different voices on the city council, because different voices bring better choices. If there's ideas that I come up with and my city council colleagues don't like them, it's not going to pass. I remember working with Del Pepper a couple of years. We would drive down to Richmond together. She would say, Frank, you have great ideas. I don't agree with most of them, but some of the ones that you bring forward, that you really offer an interesting perspective to the city council. And so one of the things that we really need to look at in the city budget is the city schools. They're spending $400 million in the city schools. That's an average of our 16,000 students, $25,000 per student. The average cost in Virginia is $17,000 a year per student. So that's one of the first things we need to look at. We need to support the children, but how much other money is being spent in the schools that don't need to be?
A budget is our moral document. It should really reflect our values and our priorities as a city. And something I will prioritize is on housing. And I'm putting tenants in the front, putting people who are actually struggling, putting people who feel forgotten, who I've spoken in the last 3 weeks, people who are going to inherit this city, seniors who are worried about rising costs, small businesses who worry if they're gonna make it to next year. Like I said it before, it's a moral document that we should prioritize all our values if we're really to succeed. And I know right now we're in a tight space, but we also have mass inequality in this city as well. Someone from the West End as me who lives paycheck to paycheck and lives on rent is way different than somebody who could be in the East or in the North. So that's something I will prioritize, is addressing and holding people accountable. Why isn't everybody paying their equal and fair share of the pie? Thank you.
Yeah, for me, it's also affordability, and it's around housing. And so my priorities will be focused on increasing our housing stock, protections for renters, right? I talk about eviction protections. The city does a good job at that. Could we find money to expand that, to do more families, right? 10 families, 20 families. Is there money to do that? That's what I would be focused on, because people are struggling today, right now. And I think those programs that exist are great. I would think about scale and how do we increase it. In addition to that, housing affordability or housing homelessness, it's a public health issue. It's an economic stability issue. And if people don't have stable homes, they're not going to work because they're trying to figure out how to stay in the house that they have. And so I think starting there, in terms of housing affordability, is where I think I would try to put as much time and resources to ensure through the pipeline that they are better, now that they have at least stable housing to be able to look for jobs, to find jobs.
I'm sorry, I can't get over that we're going to cut school funding. That is shocking to me. That is a shocking place to start. The way our city budget works is a third of it goes to the schools, a third of it goes to personnel, a third of it goes to everything else. We need to be bringing more money into our schools. You think we're spending too much on children? It costs $2,500 extra to educate each English language learner in our system, who we want here. We need to be turning to the state now that we have Abigail Spanberger in office, somebody who supports public education, and Alfonso and Elizabeth, and now Kirk and Sharna. We need to work with them to bring more funding into our system in Alexandria and fix the financial formula that disadvantages our kids. I have 10 seconds left. I'm going to leave it there. Good choices, different voices. I mean, let's embroider down on a red hat for you, Frank.
Oh, wait, Tim hasn't gone yet. Sorry, Tim.
All right, I guess I'll be one minute. So, budget priority. So I think what we heard a lot about until we got to Sandy here is that we have trade-offs right now, right? And I've written about this, and we have an income problem in our city. And so until we solve our commercial development problem, commercial tax base problem, we are always going to be having to ask, what is it we're going to prioritize one thing over the other? And what I think Mr. Fannin brings is a stagnation mindset. I want to be respectful about that, but just say I think it's seeing a pie that's fixed, and I think we need to have a growth mindset, a yes and mindset. So seeking more money from Richmond is definitely something that we should do. We should leverage our relationships and seek that money. But we also need to really lean into whatever it is that we can do here to actually see the commercial development that we need. That unlocks the ability to fund schools, to fund affordable housing, to fund the transit that we need to see in the city, because we are a progressive city that is looking forward, not looking behind.
Now 30 seconds, Roberto.
Sure. Well, I mentioned workforce, and to tie all that in, what it boils down to is sustainability. How are we going to sustain the level of services we need now, the level of services we need in the future, with our current model, which has traditionally relied heavily on the taxpaying citizen? When we talk about workforce, again, we talk about bringing in business, we talk about people being able to afford to live here, just a more robust local economy altogether.
Okay, here's the curveball. The fiscal year 27 budget is showing slightly below the approved fiscal year 26 budget, and the city manager is asking for a 1% budget cut for all city departments. Knowing that there are likely cuts coming in the upcoming budget, how would you balance that with the priorities that you all just laid out? And how would you ensure that the budget cuts do not disproportionately harm vulnerable communities? So Roberto, we'll start back with you.
Well, I think it's no secret we've been heading into uncertain economic times for years now. And this isn't just a 2027 matter. I think when we talk about budget cuts, we have to talk about things like, for instance, I'll give an example of my service on the Sheriff's Community Advisory Board. The 1% budget cut to that department is required to do about $350,000 worth of damage. And there's implications there for people that are going to return to our community who have been incarcerated, who now may not get GED opportunities or other workforce opportunities. So when we talk about the implications of 1% budget cuts across the board, I understand that for the sake of fairness, but we need to figure out what our priorities are and again, how they disproportionately impact low-income kids. That's through the school system, that's through our Office of Workforce Development, that's through ARHA. We really need to reevaluate these things and maybe even look out to how many staff we have in our Office of Accountability so we can really start to make informed decisions.
To cut the budget, what we need to do is we need to look at staffing in the city. So if we have efficient workers that are doing a good job, do we need so many workers in the city? We're all for public employees that do a good job, but if you need to, cut some positions, let's take a fine-tooth comb and take a look through those. Also, we spend a tremendous amount of money in our human services, and that's very important, but also we have 40,000 Alexandrians out of 160,000 Alexandrians are using our human services department. I think that's not good and that's sad, and we need to continue to help these people. And I think we need to partner more with our charities. Alexandria is one of the most charitable communities around. I personally have given out scholarship fund to the city of Alexandria for students to go off to college. I've done it for over 20 years. I don't ask what their race, their creed, their legal status is. I do it because it's the faith that I believe in to help the people. Also, I've done a food and clothing drive for years. 19 years in a row, we filled up 6 truckloads of clothes. We took them to Christ House Carpenter Shelter and Catholic Charities this weekend. And we need to continue to work with our charities and partner.
Frank, let me be frank with you. No, absolutely not. We're not going to cut anybody's job. And crowdfunding to me is a sign of a failed society and a sign of a failed city if we do that. No, we have to carefully acknowledge the problems that we have and where we can actually do the cuts that are unfortunately going to hurt us. Yes, There are gonna be some factors that are gonna be hurting, but taking people out of the job when the job market is already hard enough to go and find, are you absolutely insane, dude? And not to be rude or anything, but no, I think we need to prioritize. We need to prioritize the most vulnerable first, and then slowly, actually, slowly look into this with care and actual morals instead of being like, oh, slash, come on, Frank.
I'd say, as someone who was a staffer or a DC City Council member, when we had to do a similar thing years ago, one of the things she told me was, as a staffer, your name isn't on the door, hers is. And when things happen and people's jobs get cut, that's on you. That would be on me. That's a lesson that I've always learned. Sometimes there are gonna be cuts. This is a government. And you do the best you can to protect what you can, but you gotta prioritize. You gotta look at communities who have historically always been the first to go and think about, is that where I'm gonna go now? They're already hurting. But there were no sacred cows. So you had to just think, where is the impact going to be? And that's gonna be hard work. But that's work that I've done before. That's work where I've seen people who have lost their jobs after government made cuts. And it's a terrible sight. But it's a reality that we're living in this time in America.
Well, aren't we glad that our city staff is unionized now? I'd like to get to the point, to what I think is the heart of the question here. When city council goes into that room and the door closes, and none of us in the public knows what happens, I mean, obviously there's transparency, I'm using a metaphor here. Who is going to take these issues and these concerns in the room with them and make really difficult decisions? The entire country is in a terrible financial situation, and we know why. We are going to have to make really difficult financial decisions. That 1% cut across the board, it is going to be hard. And the question is, who can you trust to be in the room to make the best possible decision that aligns with your ethos and your values? I told it to every organization that I've talked with, that I care about, and all of the people I've listened to over the past couple of weeks that we've been doing this. I will take these values into the room with me and do the best I can.
Didn't forget about you this time.
Thank you. Could you repeat the question just to make sure I got it?
So the fiscal year 27 budget is showing slightly under the 26 budget. The city manager is asking for a 1% budget cut for all city departments. Knowing that the likely budget cuts are coming, how would you balance that with the priorities that you just promised? And how would you ensure that those budget cuts do not disproportionately harm vulnerable populations?
Gotcha, thank you. Yeah, like I said earlier in my last answer, we have this income problem that we need to address. How would I balance priorities? I think first, continue to do the outreach and engagement with constituents to hear how people are affected, so I can be the best informed as I can be within that room to make those decisions. What we do know is that historic underinvestment in infrastructure has caused a lot of the issues that we see out in the community today. And underinvestment in areas that are disproportionately affecting people of color and immigrant residents. And so I would keep that top of mind to be sure that we can continue to make those investments in infrastructure and we don't cut those long-range investment items, for lack of better words, to be sure that we actually do move the needle on fixing those issues and don't see long-run regression from progress.
30 seconds.
Yeah, so I just want to say that when we're talking about impacting, vulnerable communities, we need to really think through wants versus needs here in the city. There's a big difference, and they look different for different communities, but also some other ideas. I mean, we could possibly delay a project in a building in our capital improvement program. The city has a AAA bond rating. We can afford to borrow more money for critical needs. There's other ways around it.
closing this out, we are moving on to education and public schools. Picture this. You are appointed as a liaison to the Children, Youth, and Families Collaborative Commission as a newly elected councilperson. How would you leverage that position to address socioeconomic and racial disparities with ACPS? And Cesar, we will start with you and work our way down this way.
So somebody who's a teacher, who's been in education now for 2 years, I know that's Tim. I can tell you firsthand, I see what teachers go by. I can tell you what admin goes by. I can tell you what students go by. And what I would do is I would prioritize the needs and the ones that they want. Education to me is at the very top. There is no if, buts, or maybe for me. There is no cutting or slashing for me. I'm very hardline when it comes to that. And when it comes, like I said, if we are to improve as a society, we have to prioritize on education. We have to make sure that the future is ready. We have to make sure that the people and our children get the opportunities that we don't have. Because when we have kids, that is the main goal that we guide them through and that we guide ourselves to better them. There's a reason when we have crime and high crime rates, it's because maybe you don't have the opportunity that you didn't give them. And as somebody who used to be a delinquent, I can tell you flat out, from the mistakes that I've learned, it was because I wasn't given the opportunities of maybe going to an after-school program and all that. But that, for me, education, everything, blank check for them.
I would tell them, you know, as a kid who grew up in New York City public schools, I know that it's a challenging time for parents, for schools, for administrators. My nonprofit was to help youth who were thrown out of school, out of home. And some went to school, and that's the meal that they ate. And so I know that not every child comes to the situation the same way. I took in a kid who was transgender who got thrown out. And I had to also learn what that meant myself. As a gay man, I wasn't trans, so I had to learn what that meant. And so I had to help educate staff. I've done trainings at ACPS schools to help staff learn, how do you talk to someone from that community? They may not know. So I want to provide services and support. I used to chair the School Health Advisory Board when I was working with HIV/AIDS rules and regulations within the school system around kids who were exposed or who had it, how did you treat it in regulations from the 1980s. And so we updated that to ensure that we have the proper tools in place to ensure students were healthy. So that's what I would say to anyone at that.
I would love to be appointed to that commission. I would love to be the liaison. What would I do to work with them? So I have a lot of experience in this area as a veteran of the public school system for 10 years and someone who has served on PTAs. I want to present to you the PTA as not, we're not cookie bakers anymore. That's not what the PTA is. My PTA in elementary school at Charles Barrett, we talked a lot about leveling the playing field for our kids and for our parents. So we implemented a lot of anti-racist behavior. We removed socializing from fundraising. We removed any kind of event that took place outside of the school. The school is a third place where everyone is welcome. There are a lot of schools and public children's organizations who are going paperless. We have many people in our community who don't have bank accounts. So I would love to, we have East Side schools renovating their own playgrounds and then using the extra money to build a track instead of helping out another PTA on the west side that doesn't have any parent involvement. There's a lot we can do on equity in this specific commission to work with the schools that really are our third places where everyone comes together. I would love a chance at that.
So as a commission chair, I would just ask anyone who gets appointed to any commission, be familiar with what the publications are that commission puts out. And not that anyone here hasn't said anything in that regard. But in this case, a youth needs assessment. And because I say this because the committees and commissions and boards do so much work to help educate the community on what those needs are and what possible solutions are to address those needs. And in this case, in the youth needs assessment, we've identified that there is a big need for mental health, addressing mental health in our youth. And we know this, we've probably heard it at some point, but they've outlined a lot of ideas for how we could address that. So what I would want to do is work with this commission, which was established to help reduce silos within the city council and the school system, to help bring that connectedness to the table, so we can actually use, like, look, where are those third spaces? Where are those places that kids can connect, so we can actually start moving that needle on the mental health crisis and see some of these solutions come to bear.
Can you repeat the question again? I want to make sure I understand it fully.
Certainly. If I can find the question. Okay. You've been appointed the liaison to the Children, Youth, Family Collaborative Commission. How would you leverage that position to address socioeconomic and racial disparities between ACPS?
Well, the assumption there is that I'd be working with kids who need my help the most. Good thing I have experience doing that. I would work with the school board to ensure that they knew what was going on at central office, and central office knew what was going on at the school level, that things that impact things like the academy model and career pathways that have minimum GPA requirements that prevent some kids from even getting in the first place who need an opportunity. Also working with families to fast track kids back to a minimum standard of employment, knowing that COVID did a number on their education. I would work with families to identify potential career placements for their young people right out of high school, knowing that they're not going to a 2-year or 4-year college. I would educate the families on the fact that I know you're living in Section 8 potentially. If your son gets a job, it might impact your rent going up because his income might go to your income, and we might have to figure out housing. So, you know, I mean, there's a lot of different components that we could do, but it would be an education for all and inclusivity for all, knowing that there's already challenges that we have to make up for.
We're blessed in the community to have leaders like Caesar and Roberto who reach out to these kids and bring them in and care for them. And I think that's one of the most important things that I would do if I was running a group like this, is find leaders. Guys like Bill Campbell. Every year we take kids to the Nationals game, Alexandria Sportsman's Club. All I gotta do is call up Bill, and Bill, I got 30 tickets. And he's there to bring the kids together. And mentors in the community, like what Roberto's doing with these trades, is so important. Our family has an HVAC business right on Duke Street. If you drive by, it's gonna say, training, need help. And this is one of the most important things that we can do, is get kids into the trades. And I always say, a good plumber makes more money than a bad attorney in Alexandria.
Sandy, did you have a follow-up? Did I misread that?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
But was somebody else?
It's you, and then we'll go to Roberto, 30 seconds each.
I was just really thrilled to hear Tim bring up mental health. This is a huge issue. I have a middle schooler and a high schooler. I think I'm the only ACPS or current parent up here, Frank, I don't know about you. Mental health, there is a mental health crisis. I feel like that phrase is overused. Obviously, we're up here talking about how we need to reduce our entire budget by 1%. What I would like to say is that in addition to finding money for this, somehow we need more providers. We need male providers specifically. We've got a real problem for boys and young male teens, in addition to others. But we could really use some time and attention devoted, perhaps through that commission, on this specific lane.
So on this commission, another thing that I would do is ensure that as we're designing it, we have the youth at the table. We have their parents at the table. So we're not trying to force solutions on them in regards to resources we're providing. We do that way too often in this city, and we cannot tell individual communities or population how we need to serve them. We need to have them a part of the design process so we can serve them in the best way they need. Charles, 30 seconds.
Reading the youth risk behavioral survey back then was one of the reasons why we started Safe Space Building to begin with. Because we saw the incredible need. We were tired of seeing kids write, they want to harm themselves, and those numbers going up and up and up. And who was that community who was saying that? Which is why we started that work, because I saw myself as that kid 30 years ago feeling the same way. And so we help to support Fill a Need as a nonprofit. So I think having public-private partnerships with other organizations can take the burden off of the school system.
School board recently voted down a pilot program to transport ACPS high school students using dash buses. Would you support school board revisiting this plan, and why or why not?
I would not, especially with, you know, the ice cubes running around here, and especially with the large black and brown community that we have here in Alexandria. I don't think exposing them to a location and a place where they can get caught and, you know, family. If we know one thing about this rogue administration is they will grab you and they will not tell anybody. And I was a proud supporter of the students and teachers who all got together. Well, they even let me know. Somebody who works at DCPS, they contacted me like, hey, Caesar, can you speak on this? And I remember being a large advocate about this. Yes, it sounds like a great idea, but it also screws our workers here, bus drivers. And it also does put our children in danger, especially with the threats that we have now. Maybe in a different administration, it'll be a different story. But right now, the sad reality that we live in, we got to prioritize our kids' safety.
Yep. School board recently voted down a pilot program to transport ACPS high school students using dash buses. Would you support the school board revisiting this plan? Why or why not?
I think no, because using the dash bus, there are people who drive those buses. Those are jobs that I think we are potentially eliminating by looking at that plan and going forward with that. People are still looking for work. And so I think that's a viable option. I think kids are safer on the school bus, not having to enter into the city and be on the bus with other people. Who knows what could happen to them? And so at least on the school bus, there's a bit more safety, and that you can assume that there's a bit more safety versus having them on, you know, public buses. It's not always about money. It's not always about funding. It's also just about your morals and what you feel is most safe for our kids. Right now, the world is crazy. And I think if we can keep a little bit of safety by having them on school buses, I think that's the best approach.
I've said a few times I'm an ACPS parent. I don't know, John, but here is what I do know. I don't know the specific answer to the question, but here's what I do know. What I do know is that I get notifications about 85 times a day that tells me the bus is running late or the bus isn't coming. The school bus, that is, or the bus has been diverted, or a different bus will be covering for our bus, and so my child will be very late to school. We've got a bus driver shortage. I don't think that this plan had anything to do with putting 5-year-olds on a dash bus unaccompanied. Without, you know, a firm and detailed discussion about that, you know, I have not been involved in that, but what I will say is this: I would like to see these things discussed in public. I don't think this idea got any air. It was just sort of shut off. I am really interested in creative solutions to large-scale problems, and I would like to hear more about this, and I would like to see it discussed transparently and openly, and I would love to be a bridge on city council between council and school board to facilitate these conversations so that we can have them.
I'm going to take a similar tack to Sandy here. Like, I really don't know how I would have come out on this question, and I think it's because, you know, I had some conversations with school board members about what was going, you know, what was their perspective on this, and you know, there's a lot of factors that goes into this. I mean, yes, we have a dash bus system that we, you know, high schoolers can otherwise use when it's not specifically for a school function. But we know that we do need to increase transit options. We need to increase the frequency and the location of where Dash goes to make sure that people don't get stranded and can actually rely on the Dash system. So there's a lot more work that we do need to do on transit. But specifically with the question for school buses, I know that there were questions about if we start to go down the path of reducing certain school bus routes, could this become an issue with our school bus drivers not being able to meet enough hours to keep up their benefits? So there's just a lot of factors here, and without knowing more, I can't really answer the full question, but that's how I would approach it. It's really doing my homework, trying to see from every angle what are all the inputs here that we need to consider, and then being transparent with the public about where we come out.
The question was, would I revisit this? Is that right?
Yeah, if the issue came up, if the school board revisited the issue, would you support it?
If the school board revisited it, or if I wanted to revisit the decision the school board made?
Well, you certainly can if you want to.
So, well, when elected to city council, I believe in revisiting a lot of things that I don't fully understand, so I can understand them. I also can understand the concern about children riding public transportation. That could be a safety from a very personal level, because I know some of our kids don't ride the Dash, even not during school hours, because there's rival beefs going on in neighborhoods where kids are getting stabbed at bus stops. There's a lot of things going on that need to be considered that I don't think are fully considered, including bus routes being diverted for whatever reason that make people's lives difficult in general, where they have to take multiple buses to a route where it was just one before. But separate from that, what does that say about how we feel about our city safety overall? If we are not trusting, high school age kids who otherwise ride the metro and the bus in their day-to-day life to get to school, I think there's a lot to consider here. And I understand the approach from a financial offset component to try to think creatively and innovatively. And I also support those lines of thought, because as we know, the budget's tight. We got to figure something out. But the right or wrong answer, with more data when I'm on city council, I will revisit it.
I believe Councilman Onubi is the one who put that forward, and I thought it was a wonderful idea to try to cut the budget and get creative, and apparently it hit a big roadblock up at City Hall. But when I'm on the city council, I would definitely look at that and, yes, use Dash buses to get the students around the city.
Just want to use 10 seconds to let you know local journalism is important. Y'all were looking at me wrong when I couldn't answer the frequent one. And look at now what we got, right? But I also want to let y'all know that students can use the Dash if they want, just to this day. And one of the main worries of the students that brought it up to me was ICE, was what's going on right now. That was the main purpose. And like I said, if God wants us to have a different administration in 2028, which I really hope we do, yes, we can revisit that. But at this very moment, I am a hard no on that.
All right, we are moving into transportation, infrastructure, and environmental sustainability. That will be one question because we're getting tight on time. What do you think is the city's biggest transportation challenge? And if you could also incorporate some themes of environmental justice in your answer with that, identifying that challenge, please do so. And Sandy, we will start with you this time.
I get to go first. The biggest transportation challenge we have, I think we've covered that in so many different ways. We are a city that has incredible disparity and difference, based on location. And one of the problems we have that we're trying desperately to fix is connectivity. We need to have, community retail. We need to have community schools. We need to be making places in parts of the city other than, Old Town and Del Rey, right? Placemaking is a huge proponent or a huge component of ALX Forward, and transportation and transit-oriented housing are just absolutely key to that. I know that Bill's going to hold up the 10 seconds any second now, so what I will say is that we've got two huge proponents of climate resilience, two sure thing climate votes on Alexandria City Council right now, although I do believe the whole council is climate friendly. But that's Sarah Bagley, who has endorsed me, and Kirkland Pike, who we just sent off to Richmond. I will be the second sure thing vote on climate resilience on council.
We'll get this right by the end of this. I'll just come back to my question just to keep it simple. Increasing the frequency and availability of reliable transit, bus transit in particular. That's what it is. We need people to be able to get to the point where they can trust the transit systems to get to where they need to go and the time that they need to go. That addresses affordability, that addresses quality of life. I really like what Sandy's saying here about placemaking, because if you don't have to travel as far for particular essential services, then that also helps your quality of life, and that is also a transit issue. So thinking differently about how we approach a transit question is going to be vital as we do start to implement ALX Forward, as we start to look at the Duke Street Land Use Plan. And in environmental justice, my position is that environmental justice is an absolute essential. And we have to stop thinking of environmental anything as a nice to have and start seeing it as the essential infrastructure that it is.
I think we should build hover cars. Do it that way. Just kidding. Yeah, I don't know. I'm tired. It's late. Running out of ideas. I'm just kidding. I'm a big fan of Dash, and I think the city is doing a lot of incredible things using technology to map traffic patterns. Right? When we think about transit and connectivity, we also have to think about the way it's impacting people who drive cars, because those aren't going anywhere. And the fact that our roads are only as wide as they can be. So timing the bus routes around times where traffic is congested, which we're starting to see on Duke Street in both ways, which we're starting to see in Old Town in both ways, is something that I'm very passionate about. Being smart in regards to the timing of our routes while maintaining the effectiveness of people getting to work, people getting to the hospital, people getting to other critical needs in their lives, all while ensuring we're making equitable decisions, not diverting routes that impact people for the sake of doing it, which is a thing. So, anyhow.
One of the biggest transit decisions that hurt us was about 45 years ago when they laid out the metro system. Arlington County decided to do high zoning all around their metro stations, and at that time in Alexandria, they really fought against it. So as you can see right now, the Braddock Road Metro Station has been underutilized. Right now there's a piece of land across from the station which will be developed into housing, and that's what we need. If we need housing, we need to get the cars off the street. They need to be built heavily around the metro. But the traffic is the biggest, car traffic is the biggest concern that we have in the city. It really damages our quality of life. If you try to get from Potomac Yards to the Beltway at 4:30, you're gonna get to the Beltway at 5:15. Councilman Chapman and I, we live within a few blocks from each other on Taylor Run and Clover College Park. I don't leave my neighborhood between 4 and 6 p.m. because I can't get out of it on Duke Street. So we have lots of challenges here. And another thing that the city did recently is the Vision Zero is good in some parts. We need to protect pedestrian safety. We don't want anybody to get hit by cars. But there's also been a lot of needless no turn on red signs put up, and that's causing more traffic around town where people can't take a right on red when there's nobody nearby.
I'm gonna go after you, Frank. But as a frequent Dash bus rider over here on Duke Street, you can catch me at 5:45 a.m. in my little red or my little black North Face waiting in the cold for the Dash. Yes, I can tell you guys that times can get confusing every once in a while. But to say that Braddock Road Metro Station being underused is a blatant lie. I use that station whenever I need to get around town or even get to work. If King Street's a mess, I'm gonna go to Braddock Road. And we also have to address the infrastructure of Duke Street. That's the street that I live in. I'm from the West End. Everybody's gonna tell you, I also drive, yes. But it's more convenient to me when I have a city that gives me free fare to go in the bus and then get in like half an hour over there to King Street, which we can make that, but no. And on terms of climate, yes, that's a big issue. I'm a huge climate change advocate. Those are going to be debates that I think that's going to be one of our biggest threats of our future and our concerns. But my time's up now. But thank you.
Duke Street, Duke Street, Duke Street. Yes, I can't believe I agree with you, Frank. That is important. I live off of Duke Street. I do not leave my house also if I'm home at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. You think I'm gonna go see friends down Duke? It's not happening, right? Because you can't move. Or I'll take an alternate route. And so I think we know what those issues are. Is how do we move people around the city? And I think the question for us becomes, what is it gonna take for people to get out of their cars? What is it gonna take? How do we get that answer from them? And so that's something I am thinking about. As some of you know, I work for an environmental organization. So this is my job, right? I care about climate resilience. I care about climate change. One of the things I'm so passionate about is to create a climate corps of students and youth who maybe never thought about climate work at all, but now consider that as a career path for them. But also, it serves a city mission of building the next generation of environmental conservationists. That is why I'm in this race.
All right, we are on our last topic, and then we'll move into closing statements. Last question, it's on community engagement and government transparency. You all have been running for a couple weeks now. Based on your conversations with voters, why do you think they are so frustrated or angry at this particular time and in this political climate? And what would you do to demonstrate that you are the council person to address those frustrations or anger? Frank, we will start with you.
Okay. We live in a wonderful city, and I'm friends with everybody from different walks of life, and I always assume someone's my friend unless they give me a good reason not to be my friend. And the reason I'm in this race is that there's a lot of people that feel that the city council doesn't listen. And I don't think that it's the city council doesn't listen, they just don't have the views of everybody's perspective in this city. You know, there's quite a few people that are left-wing progressive Democrats in this city, and that's wonderful. But we don't need to have a city council with a whole bunch of left-wing progressive Democrats, because that's not representative of the city. And one of the things that I would like to do if I get on the city council is have a discussion with some of the council members to have wards representation in this city. There's too much going on in this city for someone to take care of what's going on down on King Street compared to the west end of the city. The citizens, 160,000 citizens, they all deserve a council man or a council woman, okay? You have to have somebody be responsible for your neighborhood or your area. I remember when I was on the city council, when the sewers were backing up in Del Rey and the city council got a whole email on it,
Thank you, Frank.
Nobody wanted to be their councilman. But when it comes time to fix a pothole, oh, I'll be your councilman for that one.
Come back this way, Roberto.
Community engagement and transparency is something I feel very passionate about. In fact, I've been doing exactly that for over the past 5 years, sitting on boards, commissions, forums, and I think one thing that Frank said that I think most people up here would agree with is that the lines of communication aren't open in real time for neighborhoods and people across the city to bring their grievances or their favoritism to the table, right? There is a lot of representation that's going on, that's important, that's good, but I think we can get better at that. I think we need to be building trust in neighborhoods, not just in Del Rey, not just in Rosemont, not just in Old Town, not just on the West End, but everywhere. And that's what I bring to the table. That's what I'll continue to bring to the table. I will show up, I will build trust, and success is built on relationships and networking. And I think we need to bring relationships back from the community to city council and really make that stronger moving forward.
I'm going to be honest, I lost the question. Can you please, I think it was the start of the public service.
That's totally fine. Why do you think voters are frustrated or angry at this particular moment and in this political climate? And what would you specifically do to demonstrate that you are the council person to address those frustrations or anger?
Thank you. So I think the heart of this question for me is, who are the voters that we're talking about? And what I mean when I say this is that from Mr. Fannin's perspective and from my own as being a civic association president, granted Del Rey is a little bit different than the other civic associations, I think everybody kind of gets that sense. But we have to understand, what does the vote of a civic association mean and what does it not mean? Who are the people that are at that table discussing the issues and who is left out? And I think our city is doing a better job at outreach in our community, at making things available in more languages, in more locations, at different times of the day. These are very good, positive things to make an inclusive environment where we can hear voices. But to the extent that people are frustrated, I am more concerned about those who are frustrated because they are still left out of the conversation and they do not have a seat at the table and have not been invited in.
My sense is that people are angry and frustrated because, again, that is a rational response to what is happening in our country writ large. COVID certainly didn't help. We all became distant from one another. We spent a lot of time behind our keyboards or not communicating, not looking each other in the eye. As my kids say, you know, we need to touch grass. There are all kinds of things we need to be doing for our own mental health to make us less frustrated in the world. Right now we have, you know, the equivalent of like, you know, a bad bug in an old Dell laptop just kind of running in the back of our minds all the time, just really, you know, killing our bandwidth and our ability to be anything but frustrated. You know, I'm going to defend our city council here, and I'm going to defend our city services. I think that we provide a lot of paths to communicate with our city government, and we can do better at providing access to those. I have some friends who like to call me Human 311. I think the equitable thing to do is to provide as much access as possible to our communities. I have a network and a coalition to do that, and I do think at some point we need people to opt in to communications. It's difficult to give information to people who haven't requested it, and we need to go into communities, meet people where they are, and give them the information that they need to opt into services and communication from the city.
I'd say, you know, Alexandria this isn't an Alexandria thing. People are just generally pissed across this country. They're bombarded with news, crazy things all the time. You know, they're struggling if they're going to have a furlough, if there's going to be a shutdown, right? Are they going to be able to pay the mortgage? There's just a lot. We've had 2 elections like within 2 months here. People are frustrated. And it's not like this is the city's fault, this is the law and things, but people don't care about that. Don't tell me what the law says, tell me what you're gonna do. And so I think people want to be better connected with their leadership, with their council members, and whoever that person may be, whoever that is. So I think we need to do more of sort of that in-person engagement when we can. That council on your corner, that person knocking at your door. I get a mouthful from people when I knock at their door and they say, another election. And so I think it's a way in how we communicate and how we do it. And they care, and they want to vote. They just need to find the time. And I think we need to make it easier for them to do that. Access, as Sandy mentioned, I think is critical.
Leadership begins with listening, and I've been able to organize and I've been able to advocate thousands of people online. Yes, we also have to get with the times. I'm the only Gen Z candidate here, not to brag, and not to keep bullying Frank. I promise you, we're not all leftists, Democrats, boogeyman that you say. I'm pretty sure Connecticut, Jacinta, Abdallah, John over there are not all the same opinion-minded person. And something that I've heard, yes, their frustration, especially with the current snowstorm that we recently got. There was a lot of frustrations. A lot of conversations started going. And something that I applaud Mayor Gaskins that she did was she actually took something out of my playbook, which is going out there and actually making videos and informing people, and that's actually worked. Her ratings have gone up, and I applaud that. Like, I actually get to see and know more. As somebody who's socially active on media, that is great. We have to keep pushing that, and also keep pushing accessibility and transparency, and letting people know that we are here by doing more town halls and more meetups, and even showing up to the smallest thing, maybe, you know, the market, you know. Anyway, time's up, sorry.
Okay, before we give the candidates their closing remarks, we just want to thank them again for their time. I think this has been really substantive, and your answers have been great. Thank you for having a respectful and spirited debate. I will start with Caesar. 60 seconds each of you have for a closing statement, and that will be it.
Of course I'm going to ask you to vote for me. Everybody in here is going to ask you. I bring a new perspective. I'm going to be real with you guys. I know it's scary to have the young guy here, the unknown, the person that's been here for only 3 years, but I've learned so much from you guys. You guys are a community of fighters. You guys are a community of people who get together in tough times. But one thing that I lack in political experience is integrity and service to my community. And I've shown that throughout every day by showing up without the fancy title. I show up everywhere. You can ask ADC. You can ask some people from Alive. You can ask some people from just Alexandria Snow Bunnies. You'll see a Caesar Madison out there for you. So thank you for giving me the platform and opportunity to be out here. Thank you so much.
Thank you to the DPC, to the NAACP Alexandria branch, and to all of you who have been here listening to us talk and give our thoughts around the vision we have for Alexandria. I've been here, like I said, over 15 years. After leaving New York, coming to DC, Alexandria became my home. I've met so many people here. Some of them are in this room. It's really a community of people who care about one another. And you don't see that. You don't see that in many places. And so I'm in this race because I saw myself as a kid not knowing if I would make it, but I have. And that's due in part to this community. And so I'm so thankful for my time here, thankful for getting to know all of you, and I can't wait to see you out there. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
We are in a really interesting situation in this election. Usually we have 15 people running to fill 6 seats, and we have the opportunity to sort of pick a team, right? We give one person a chance because we really like this specific piece of their platform. We give somebody else our vote because we know they're a heavy lifter, they're gonna get the stuff done, right? That's not what we're doing here. We're filling one hole. It's a hole left by Kirk McPike. Kirk is a heavy lifter. He does a lot on legislation. He's done a lot to protect choice in Alexandria. He is one of our 2 sure thing climate votes. We right now are tasked with replacing him on an existing team. In April, we will have 1 Democrat fighting for this city council man seat. I hope to be that candidate facing off against Frank Fannin and anyone else who comes our way. And that same race will be on the ballot with the constitutional referendum to redistrict the Commonwealth of Virginia so that we can help our friends in the United States House and Americans across the country defeat Trumpism. I'm asking for your vote, and thank you so much for everyone who put this on this evening.
Thank you all for being here. Many of you know me as a neighbor, as a friend, as a colleague, and an advocate who has been out there with you in the trenches doing this work. You know, I've been, like I said, president of a civic association bringing people together. I have also been chair of the EOC, where I've been in the seat bringing people together to discuss the key issues, learning those issues, and deeply understanding them so that I can build an experience that will make me an effective councilman. That's the experience that I bring. It's the leadership that I bring. And that's why I'm endorsed by someone like David Speck and Donna Kenley, people who mean a lot to me for their leadership and their experience of forming coalitions to get stuff done. That's the type of leader I will be on council, and I am ready to do that on the first day.
Thank you all for being here. My name is Roberto Gomez. I'm a small business owner, and I'm the founder and executive director of a nonprofit that has changed the lives of young people through workforce. I don't just talk about issues or theorize, I show up and I get things done. And that's why I'm proud to say I'm endorsed by our mayor, Aaliyah Gaskins. I'm endorsed by the labor unions. I'm endorsed by former Mayor Bill Ewell. I'm endorsed by Senator Cory McCray out of Maryland, who wrote a book called The Trades Changed My Life. Because workforce is the future, we need to think about that. We need to think about the new voice that could be brought to the table to hear all voices. With more of the same voices, we get the same results. What I can promise you is that I won't be that same voice. Vote for me February 21st. Remember, I'm a doer, I show up, everything from the gang task force to the ACP-SCT advisory committee. I don't just talk about things, I do them.
We're all very fortunate to be Alexandrians, and I, am very fortunate that when the Irish ship showed up at the foot of Queen Street in 1850, when our family immigrated here from Ireland, they got off the boat. The first 70 years, they were oppressed, as the term mix which are out of our culture right now, but the Irish were totally discriminated against. Everybody comes from tough backgrounds, and we have to learn from our past to have a brighter future for all of our citizens here in Alexandria. And one of my favorite citizens I worked with 27 years ago was Fred Day, when he was 80 years old and I was 30 years old, and we served on the 250th Anniversary Commission of Alexandria. And he told me he remembered the 200th anniversary of the city. And he said, Fannin, I want you to be there for the 300th. So hopefully I'm going to still be around here in 25 years. And whether it's in public service or private service, I'm going to still continue to serve this city. And I'm glad I was able to meet so many wonderful people here on the dais tonight that love our city and want the best for it. Thank you.
One last round of applause for our candidate.
All right, one more round of applause for our candidates. And John, you're doing an amazing job moderating. We would all like you to hang around at the conclusion of this evening to enjoy the our bar, our cash bar, and also have an opportunity. Also have the opportunity to connect with the candidates. The beautiful thing about being an Alexandrian is the community. And not just the community that we live in, but the individuals that live next to us, those individuals who live across the street from us, and those individuals who live in the neighborhood beside us and in the neighborhood across our lovely city. As you run for council, I encourage you to talk to everyone across the city, the folks next door to you, the people across the street. We are at a very interesting place in our society, and I don't know if we are looking into something that we've never seen before, or we're looking in a mirror. And that's what we have to decide, if we're looking into a mirror or we're looking at something that we've never seen before. And we, as a citizen, I hope to have a leader who is looking in the mirror, but also providing a mirror for me and the young people in the city and the young people who live in my home. I am encouraged by your answers. I'm encouraged by your courage to put your name in the race to represent our citizens. And for that, I want to personally thank you and applaud you and invite you to hang out with us at the bar and talk to your neighbors. I'd like to thank the NAACP.
That's okay. That's okay. Keep talking.
Okay. For allowing us to partner tonight to bring this program to you. The Departmental Progressive Club has always been a safe space and will continue to be a safe space into the future to give individuals the opportunity to have conversations, and sometimes those individuals are those who live on the margins. So with that being said, I'm happy to pass the mic over to.
We'll take a page out of Russell Simmons. That's all. Thank you for coming out. Good night.
Down about with Lucille O'Flaherty, ZTV Live with the Zebra Press. Thanks for attending. Please share this. And don't forget to vote online or on Saturday, February 21st, for one of the folks in the Democratic primary, and then you'll have another opportunity to vote in April the 21st for the general election, which will also include our map, our redistricting map. It's out and about with Lucille O'Flaherty, ZTV Live with the Zebra Press. Over and